I'm just going to assume that TikTok's changed its settings and this is how lives look now. Because I've done nothing and it's changed the screen again.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Andy. Hi, Roger.
Hey, you all right?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, fine. Thank you. Yeah.
Good,
Yep.
good.
You all right, General?
Yes. Yeah. Doing okay.
I've been fighting with. I bought a new Mac and I've been fighting to get Wondershare onto it.
I thought you meant a coat for a moment.
Oh, right. Wondershare.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I've been fighting an anorak.
What is Wondershare? Is that a video?
It's a video editing.
Yeah, Film Mora.
I edit videos on my phone with iMovie. That's my level of tech.
Yeah, well, this one's a little bit more involved with that, but I just got an email from them about half an hour ago saying, unfortunately, your lifelong membership or subscription only applies to Windows, so it's not transferable.
Oh, that's a sod, isn't it?
But we can offer you a discount if you want to buy another one. So got to decide that. The other option is the computer that I'm having trouble with, which is why I bought this new one. I could possibly just strip everything else off except for Wondershare and just see if that solves the memory problems. What do you think, Andy? Do you reckon that's a possibility?
Possible. I mean, how much is the discount and how much is it? Because do you pay Wondershare like a one-off fee or do you pay it yearly or what?
No. I bought a one-off fee. I was surprised. I bought it in 2015. I didn't realize I'd had it so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it was $67 for a lifetime thing then.
Right. I suppose it depends on if you don't buy it on the Mac, for example, and do what you say and move everything across and it still is a pain in the arse, that's still not a solution to your problem, is it? Whereas, like, how much are we talking to just make it work on your Mac?
Well, yeah, I don't know yet. They haven't replied. So
okay. Yeah, I suppose it'd be a case of seeing what they offer you, how much it is, and if it's not a lot of money, it's probably easier to just go for the Mac version.
Yeah, they said we can offer you a discount. Are you interested? So I wrote back, said yes, but they haven't replied yet. So
yeah. It's probably worth seeing what they say first and then going from there.
Yeah,
I suppose it's something you're used to because you can get like iMovie on the Mac on the Mac free. It's a free, comes with it, but it's if you're not used to using that and you're used to Wondershare, then it's probably easier to work with something you're used to.
I think it's a lot less. I think there's a lot less to it as well. I think.
Yeah, it'll be if the free software usually has got quite like serious limitations on what you can and can't do.
Yeah, I mean I don't know because I've never done anything very complicated, to be honest. So I wouldn't be able to say. I mean, yes. I mean, you're probably right.
So, Ronnie, you can do a bit of advertising. How many of your new shows have you got out now? 2, is it?
It's 2, yeah.
Is there a YouTube channel, Ronnie? Is it Facebook?
No, I haven't had a chance. I'm going to upload them to YouTube. I'm going to put them on my YouTube, probably in a special section on there. Okay. It's just that.
You mean like a playlist, Ronnie?
Yeah, like playlist. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, to use the correct. I think so. So a few people have asked that, but I mean, I find that the views on Facebook far exceed the views on YouTube.
It's because people don't like to move away from their whatever platform that they use most regularly. So if they find your video on Facebook, they want to watch it on their timeline. They don't want to click on a link and go somewhere else and open it.
Yeah, I think you see the thing is, I noticed. I mean, when you get the figures up for plays of a video, that doesn't necessarily mean that people have watched it all the way through. But I think that applies to YouTube as well as Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I find is if I share a video, what they call natively on Facebook, in other words, it's posted direct on Facebook, then the views the views are far greater than if I share a YouTube link on Facebook.
Yeah.
You see,
yeah, so absolutely, you're right. 100%. Yeah. I mean, like, just for example, although it won't be anything related to what we'd want to watch, when my mum scrolls through Facebook, she's been like convinced now by phishing scams and all this kind of stuff, mainly coming from my sisters, that you never click a link ever, no matter what it is, no matter who's posted it, even if it's a friend, because it's probably not safe. So she'd never ever click on a YouTube link ever.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas she'd watch a video because it's on Facebook, it's safe.
Well, and also they often start playing as people
Yeah,
scroll.
yeah, that's absolutely
Sometimes
right.
they
Yeah,
do,
the
sometimes
autoplay.
they don't. I don't know what determines that. But of course, and if it's interesting, somebody might think, oh, well, I think you have to watch it for a certain length of time before it registers as a play. But I don't.
That's right. I think it depends on how the length of the video. It's a percentage rather than an amount of time. But also, obviously, some people watch videos on Facebook, like the video section, and one video will finish, and then there's a chance that yours will get suggested too. So people find it from that.
Yes, yeah, that's right. But I'm going to put them on YouTube. I mean, there's no harm in putting them on YouTube, and we've been asked if we will put them on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose just very quickly, if we backtrack a bit, do you want to just tell people a little bit about the show, what it's called, what you?
What it is Louise, my wife Louise and I. But basically, what happened was, I mean, we've kind of, we've appeared together on certain, discussion videos where there's been other people and stuff like that.
You've appeared together in certain beds.
In certain, yeah. Not, I mean, mainly just to drink tea these days. What happened was we did a video together to promote the National Animal Rights March. I don't know whether that's been kind of circulated yet, and we thought it worked really well, and it sort of gave us the idea. Well, how about kind of trying doing something a bit bigger than that, and doing a kind of discussion of the latest news of relevance to the animal liberation community. And so we did, and that seemed to go okay. So then we did another one. I think we were initially aiming to do them once a week, but I think it's going to end up being, a little bit. It's probably going to be about once every 10 days, really, because just when we get time to do it, And so it's something that seems to be pretty popular. We had quite a lot of plays on Facebook with it. I share it to the various vegan groups on Facebook because it's aimed really. It's kind of really aimed at people that are kind of already vegan rather than at non-vegans.
Yeah. I've only watched the first one. I haven't watched the second one yet. I haven't watched that Doug video that you shared either yet.
Yeah, the first part of our video, what we've done. I mean, I've just finished watching Doug's video, and basically our show. The show that the second show covers exactly the first two news items on there are exactly what Doug's been talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. I've just got to sort out. I had a cat go in the litter tray and do stuff, and she. Dear. I've got a bit of sorting out here to do. I don't know whether she's done a poo. I think she has, yeah.
Awesome. So whilst you're sorting that, so Roger, where are we going to start from today?
Yes, we're going to start from Ronnie sorting out a poo. It looks
Once he sorted the litter tray out, obviously.
Well, what I've got left on my list, but I think we might have covered some of these. And I think Andy, you need to be a police officer here. Stop us boring old farts repeating ourselves. I've got a Scottish raid that I want to talk about. I haven't talked about that. We've got the problem of rescue that we talked about. I'm not sure if we went into that in any detail.
Not especially, so we can still touch on that again, yeah.
Okay. The non-violence policy, we did talk about that, I think, didn't we?
Yeah,
we did,
to some degree. I mean, obviously it was mentioned initially the first week, and then last week it was touched on more so, like, in regards to the sprinkler systems just being a kind of natural occurrence of protecting humans by the fact that you were kind of getting these companies and these businesses to say, hang on a minute, we better put some money back into our fire safety system just in case. That was the only real time it was touched on last week.
I think I raised the question with you, Ronnie, about the animal rights militia. I think we covered that, did we?
We did, yeah. We spoke about that. We also talked about the non-violence in terms of, why was that the policy in terms of like kind of doing our best not to harm not to harm.
Yeah, so we've covered that. We've got the tension between the NAL and the ALF still, I
Which
think.
we did cover, and then obviously we never went any further with that because we got sidetracked. We kind of started with that last week because obviously that comes before Operation Valentine, and then we kind of moved off and never went back.
I've got Operation. I don't think we talked about Operation.
No, we never got there. We started with the NAL stuff, and then we deviated to somewhere else.
All right, well, we'll try and come back to that. Then we've got two things about the press office. Press office removed from the BOAV, and also the press office setting up in Hammersmith. So there's those two. And then I got the division between the BOAV and Animal Aid about the ALF, which is not much of a story really. And then we've got the non-vegan sanctuaries, which I think we might have touched on.
We very vaguely, but we could probably factor that in with the rescue problems. The one question that I've had from a couple of different people, which we suppose we can start with, which takes us back to last week, is going back to the devices. How did they ignite? So, you said there was a watch face or whatever, but what was the kind of spark or? How did you know that they were going to go off in the middle of the night, for example?
There was a watch with the glass taken off it, and so that exposed the hands, which made the connection. So there was wires from.
There was a battery.
Yeah, there was a battery, but when it got to 12 o'clock, it created a circuit. Okay, because the two elements came together, and that then activated the battery. The battery was attached to a little light bulb, one of the ones that you get in a torch, a very early kind of torch.
Yeah.
But the glass from that was smashed.
Right. So it was the element.
So the element started to glow, and super glued next to that was a match.
Aha.
Right, and then on top of that was the two firelighters. So that's how it worked.
Right, okay, now it makes a whole bunch of sense because that's the part that, a couple of people asked me, and I was like, you know what, I don't even know.
It was really quite intricate, especially when you consider that when I showed I talked about how I got kind of mysteriously invited up to Sheffield to have a meeting with the people that had invented the device because they wanted to explain to me what was going to happen, so I knew what to say to the press. The packet they showed me was actually a packet of 10. Cigarettes. I think they were done in 20s as well, but this was a packet of 10. So you can imagine how tightly packed everything had to be, and how kind of neatly it had to be put together.
And I suppose also in that same breath, how easy it would be if it was in your pocket or somewhere traveling there. How easy it might come apart and be broken before you even planted it.
Yes. Yeah,
because I suppose if the element and the match have to be kind of touching, it only needs to be moved ever so slightly, and it's no longer going to work.
Yes, yeah, I think it's all quite really quite intricate.
You wouldn't kind of think it was that sophisticated, really, would you? But...
No, it really was quite sophisticated. There were other. I never even thought about trying to make one. But certainly there were other people that made them, not just the original people.
Yeah,
because these things happened all over the country, and they were continuing to happen after the original people were in custody. So they got arrested, and
there was after the Sheffield trial, there was quite a lot of actions that was done in its name, really, wasn't there, Ronnie?
Oh yes, it carried on because, of course. As I said previously, the instructions for how to make these things got kind of mailed out.
And how long was there from the actual kind of the incident to when these people were arrested?
Oh, it wasn't all that long. You see,
so I suppose everyone else, like you said, you were kind of riding on the fact that hang on, this has worked perfectly.
Yeah, what happened was that that they were a group of people from Sheffield that were involved in the local animal rights scene. And kind of what happened was they kind of really made the mistake of the first attack they did was against Rackham's, the department store in Sheffield that had a fur department, and that store was badly damaged by water because the device set the sprinklers off, which was what the plan was, you see, and so it was big news and everything, and so what happened was the police in Sheffield started to think, right, it's started to kind of they placed surveillance on local animal rights activists, and they actually got the drug squad to do it, because it was the drug squad that were experts in surveillance. It was actually the drug squad, and they kind of kept an eye on. There were regular meetings about animal rights campaigners, and they kind of followed people from the meeting and kept an eye on people. And then there was this particular group of people they kind of became specially interested in, you see, and they were holding meetings. They noticed that this particular group were holding meetings in a first floor flat in somewhere in Sheffield. And so what they did was they obviously got permission of the person who lived in the ground floor flat.
No, they didn't. They moved them out.
Oh, did they move them out? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I didn't know that. But in any event, what happened was they put a listening device up through the ceiling of the downstairs flat.
And do you remember the technicality? Because this is the time when the trial went into camera, which means that all the public and all that have to go out, because it was a top secret listening device. It was like a spider, which kind of hung underneath a hole. So they had to drill a hole from below through the floorboards of above, and then put this spider thing underneath it, suspended, right? And so one big technical issue was whether it was admissible, because if you're a burglar and you put, say, the tip of a screwdriver through somebody's letterbox, then
that's burglary. Yeah,
it's burglary because you've entered their space.
Yes.
And so there was a big argument about, well, surely to actually get through the floorboard, the tip of your drill must have gone through the wood and then into the bottom of the carpet.
Yes.
So therefore it's burglary, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a big argument about that, and of course the judge allowed it. But then the guy from the Ministry of Defence or whatever it was, because it was like an experimental listening device, very kind of sensitive, as you can imagine, he didn't want to give any details. And so he kind of refused to answer. And the judge lost his temper with him. Do you remember that, Ronnie?
Yeah.
You will answer, or that's contempt of court and all this kind of stuff,
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I sort of remember it. I do sort of remember it vaguely. Yes, yeah. And it made a change for him to be angry at like someone that was on the other side. Yeah.
And I remember his one big mistake, because it was like a fairly working class jury from Sheffield, and he didn't know what firelighters were.
No.
Yeah, so when that came up in court, he kind of goes, "Oh, firelighters, what on earth are they?" kind of thing. And of course, the prosecution then had to explain it. He goes, "Oh, right, I don't have them in my bachelor flat in Chelsea." And you could see a few of the jurors going, you fucking posh bastard, all this kind of stuff.
Well, if he did have them, it would be a servant that would have lit the fire. It wouldn't have been him, would it?
No.
So...
So that was a bit of a mistake for him. And another thing I remember about the judge, Sir Frederick Lawton, is that physically he was a real wreck, but mentally he was really bright.
Oh yeah, he's very old. He was in his 80s, wasn't he? They brought him out of retirement.
He came out of retirement, to do our trial,
Yeah, and well, he didn't just do ours. I think he kind of thought he might as well do some others. And the case after ours was a rapist. And they sentenced this rapist to 4 years.
Wasn't that the famous vicarage thing?
No, it wasn't the vicarage thing. The vicarage thing was round about the same time, but that was in somewhere else. But this was this.
Yeah, because the vicarage thing was absolutely appalling.
That was absolutely appalling, and there was outrage over that because some of them only got 4 years. But this was a different one, and he gave this rapist 4 years. And
well, it's like at the moment, right? You've got all these sentences, and you've got the Just Stop Oil people going down, and then you've got these people who are throwing, bricks and shit at the police and all that, and they're getting half of them,
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, you see, the reason is because the Just Stop Oil people are a greater danger to the system, aren't they? And the profits of the oil companies and all that. Whereas, all right, so these rioters are, they're hurting individual police officers and harming people's businesses and threatening ordinary people. but they're not. They don't present the same threat to the system.
Yeah. Hey, did you hear that? Because they've obviously speed rushing these cases through, in order to kind of restore, public support and all that for the cops. But they're doing all that. But one of the counter fascist demonstrators has just been jailed.
Oh yes, I heard about that. Yes. Well,
yeah, because apparently the fascists were lobbing cans at him. I don't know whether they're full cans of beer or whatever, but so he threw them back. I think he's gone down for 3 years for that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, whether I didn't really read too much of the details of the case I saw. Whether it's the same case, whether there's more than one being jailed, I don't know.
Yeah, they're about to jail that guy who was all over social media, wasn't he? The guy who went into Greg's and then he went into a mobile phone shop and then he went in somewhere else, and he's been filmed coming out of several places, stocked up with stuff.
All trying to get his country back, yeah.
Oh, you mean trying to getting his country back?
Trying to stop immigration by stealing sausage rolls, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you stealing up sausage rolls, and there we are.
Getting your country back one
stolen at a time.
I wonder if he stole any vegan sausage rolls, or those were the only things.
Those were the first to be stolen. Don't worry, Ronnie. They took the precious stuff first.
Is that when they loot shops and all that? You get there's a row of shops, and you're looking at them. There's looted. Holland and Barrett looted.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's not my joke. I borrowed that. I heard that on the telly. Comedian told that. I thought it was
Yeah, I mean, I think Ronnie hit the nail on the head. It's all to do with who's a threat to the system at the end of the day. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
The people that are causing chaos in the streets, like genuine chaos, aren't a threat to the system. They're just more division, which actually helps the system to thrive, because then they can offer more draconian or authoritative sort of measures, which essentially just divide us even further. Whereas to just stop oil people, yeah, they genuinely are potentially a threat to those.
Well, the oil.
If they're not a playmaker.
The oil companies are hugely powerful.
Yeah,
and have so much influence on the type of government we've got that's prepared to listen to them and kowtow to them instead of standing up to them. And I mean, that's exactly the same way back in the day with us, with the vivisection industry. And this is why, such harsh measures were taken against anti-vivisection campaigners. And not just us, in the Animal Liberation Front, but people that came afterwards, like the Shack campaign, in Stop Huntingdon Animal cruelty, wasn't it? And similar campaigns where people receive very, very lengthy sentences, and there are all these special police squads set up to investigate anti-vivisection campaigners. New laws were brought in, existing laws were used in ways they were never meant to be used, and that was all at the behest of the vivisection industry and the pressure the vivisection industry put on the government, and the fact that the government was prepared to kowtow to that pressure because of the political nature of the government, because of their fundamental ideology.
Before we go on, lads, let me address Green Vegan Goddess. I've been vegan 45 years, and something I was going to mention in London at the NARM march, because loads of people have been vegan the same as me, and then there's quite a few people who've been vegan for more than me, including Ronnie here, been vegan for 52 years.
Yes.
And I don't know whether anybody's heard from John Cross, but he must be 81 years vegan now, right?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah. I haven't heard from him since about February, very early March.
Yeah, we ought to check up on him, see if he's all right, don't we?
Yeah, the last time that I spoke to him, he had a far busier schedule than I did. He was literally doing talks about railways, he was doing talks about space, and he was doing talks about something else. All over the place. He was really busy. I was struggling to find time to speak to him.
Yeah, he was lecturing to students and all kinds.
That's right. His literally schedule was just like jam packed. So, I suppose that goes a long way for talking about like vegan stamina.
With regard to ages, Green Vegan Goddess, I've just turned 67. Ronnie's about 187 or something, isn't he?
Oh, no, come on, 186. Don't rank
Oh,
me
okay, yeah.
I'm 70. I'm 70. Do you know? 70. 72. Wait a minute, I can't remember my own age.
I'm very old, you know.
73. I'm 73. Sorry, I got it. 73. Yeah.
Well, was it really 3 years ago that we did that party for you online, Ronnie?
When I was 70, yeah, it was during the lockdown. I was 70 during the lockdown. So what we did was we had an online sort of video party, didn't we? Where like all my friends, both recent and some that I've known for decades and decades. There was all these people at this online party.
And everybody sang that non-PC song that you...
Yeah, one of the songs that because I was in a punk band in the late 70s. I think it might have spilled over into the early 80s. So it was only going a couple of years, and we sang one of the first songs. But we've got a song. It was a band called Total Attack, and 5 of our tracks are actually on YouTube.
Yeah, I had not heard them before, but I like the one that you've used as the intro to the show that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that was our theme tune. That was Total Attack. That one.
And so, what was the ableist one again?
Most people are morons.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah. Actually,
it's not wrong, but yeah.
Talking of punk bands, I think on the Talon Conspiracy, which is back up online, thankfully, you said that, Ronnie, and
yeah,
I saw a kind of a zine from a punk kind of zine from Leeds, and apparently there's a punk record put out dedicated to me, part of the trial, which I didn't know, and I've never heard it or anything.
Oh, what's it called? Do you know?
No.
Oh.
I had a kind of rockabilly hillbilly type song about me. It's called Ballad. It was called Ballad of Ronnie Lee, but it
There once was a lad called Ronnie.
Yeah.
You know you've made it if someone writes a song about that.
It went like that.
Yeah, you've made it when you've got a ballad about your.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think back, like, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, like the skalds or whatever, or the bards or that they're referred to, the people that would tell the stories would often tell them through kind of like song, right? And so if you made it into one of those stories, you were really important. So yeah, I'd be quite honoured by that.
Yeah, can you imagine that being a travelling news giver, kind of like?
Yeah, that's how it used to happen.
This is the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was by a band called Friends of Harry. I don't know who Harry is, but that was the name of the band that had done that song.
It wasn't Harry Roberts, was it?
Well, no, I hope not. No.
Do you remember that song? Something like, we love Harry Roberts. He kills coppers.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they used to at football games. They used to chant Harry Roberts. You know that
Harry Roberts is our friend. He kills coppers. Yeah, that's right.
But you know the Krishna song. You know Hari Rama, that one. They'd sing that. Only they sing Harry Roberts instead.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. It's all football.
Right. We should move on. So what do you want to do next, lads?
Well, what's the first? What was the first one in all that list of topics?
The first one was my Scottish story.
Yeah,
Yes,
just go in with that if you want, unless it's got some sort of context needed.
Yeah, well, I know about this one in intimate detail because I was told. I was a press officer at the time. I was told all about it, and in fact, one of the main players was a good friend of yours, Ronnie, who will remain untold for now. But it was when the HSA and the Sea Shepherd and all that were going up to the Orkneys. So we must be talking about early 80s. And then there was a proposed raid on a breeding facility for dogs for vivisection. And there was homes for 30 dogs. And one of the innovations from it was that they were using marine CBs at the time. This is before mobile phones. And the reason that they use marine CBs is A, Sea Shepherd had some, and two, the police don't normally monitor them on land because it's actually illegal to use them on land. You're supposed to only use them at sea because they're marine CB, so it's an emergency channel, right? So I always remember it's very, you know, they had little kind of earphones in and all that, and they're just like whispering into this thing and keeping it at really low. But what happened was people went down into the compound, and then the vans went off, and then they were called back in once the beagles were coming out, and they got to the peripheral fence, and it wouldn't give way. And your mate Ronnie just kind of thought, fuck this, and just kicked it down, right, the fence, which caused an incredible clatter, and all the dogs went off. But the great thing about the dogs going off in the kennel kind of situation is that it happens for all kinds of reasons, as you know. And so usually what happens then is the people come out and shut up, you know, to the dogs, not realizing that we were the cause of it, right? So then the tale of this was that they had homes for 30 dogs, and which was duly liberated. But then it was found that each and every one of the 30 was pregnant. And therefore, there was then a major homes problem, because obviously you were not giving one dog over to somebody, you were giving 5 or 6. Right? And so that became, you know, a real problem. And I do remember the story goes that people had to keep going back. It was over a ploughed field. People had to keep going back because some of the people were kind of collapsing under the weight of these pregnant dogs. So they had to keep going back to, you know, to help, you know, bring them to at a time, 2 people for 1 dog and this kind of stuff over ploughed fields. And then the other fascinating part of this is the fact that a lot of the main groups, and I think I can name one because I don't think it exists now. It's called the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Vivisection. You'll remember that, Ronnie, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, there was at least 1 and maybe 2 or 3 of their staff on this raid, right? And in fact, it was one of their main staff who was having trouble with a pregnant beagle and had to be assisted. But the interesting part about that is that officially they would condemn the raid because they kind of had to because of who they were. You know, it was a little bit like having animal aid staff.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so they when they were asked about the raid in subsequent days, oh, that was a terrible thing to do and all that. But some of their staff were doing it.
Yes, I mean, I still don't like the fact that they spoke about it in those terms. I think they could have been a bit more non-committal than that, to be honest.
Well, it does bring us through to the other issue, which was the division between the BWV and Animal Aid about the ALF. I remember one of the prime movers of the BWV on the phone to Gene Pink of Animal Aid, the founder of Animal Aid, and they were having this full-scale row. And it was when things started to shift and the press coverage started to get worse. And so instead of being animal freedom fighters, we would then be given the T word and all this kind of stuff. And so Animal Aid kind of lost their nerve and started joining in with the attacks on this.
I mean, it wasn't just Animal Aid, there's other organisations did similar things. But you see, I think the idea was, you see, because Animal Aid thought somehow we can persuade the government to, you know, bring in some legislation, to deal with animal. The Animal Aid's main focus at the time was animal experiments and factory farming. That's kind of what they started off with. And I think they had hopes, we'll be able to persuade the government to do something about this. But if these people are doing this kind of unlawful activity, it's going to be harder to persuade the politicians, right? Which was kind of bullshit, because they would never get anything out of those politicians anyway, if you see what I mean. Not the type of politicians that they were. You know,
Well, it's the same old problem, you know. If you work within the system, then the impulse is to attack the people who are outside the system.
They
Even
felt
if,
smarmy round politicians and get something out of it. But you're not if those politicians have an
I mean, the
ideology.
worst case of that, I suppose, was the fact that I said last week that when we did that debate in Liverpool, somebody had a fishing as a blood sports badge on, and the league were trying to get them to take it off.
Yeah, I mean, the league actually condemned the ALF, and I think that was Dick Corse. Dick Corse was.
It probably would be, but then you've got the stories, of course, that during the run up to the hunting ban in inverted commas, the league were taking Labour MPs out for a steak dinner.
Oh yes, that's. It doesn't surprise me at all, despite the fact that probably the majority of the staff at the league were actually vegan.
Yeah, but it was all subsumed by this fact that again, it was back to this thing about the movement was very much focused on what they thought was the winnable. We can get rid of fur, we can get rid of hunting, we can get rid of circuses, and all that, and then we might be able to get rid of vivisection, and then we'll turn to flesh consumption. Flesh consumption was at the bottom of the list for everybody at the time.
Yes, it was. I mean, that was really how the ALF thought. Although the ALF, there were attacks on slaughterhouses. I'm certainly on their vehicles, but that was quite a minor part, really.
I don't remember the ALF making a distinction between so-called factory farming and animal farming. I don't think that existed, did it?
No, not really. Although where rescues were carried out of animals in farms, that was really factory farming, and it was mainly battery chickens, battery hens that were rescued.
Yeah, but there's a lot of liberations from backyards and stuff as well. And also, I remember in Yorkshire there was liberations from allotments, for example.
I think because maybe it was quite an easy thing to do.
Yeah. Then there's the famous liberation about quail. I think the only time that quail were liberated.
Yes, I think that was.
That was a Liverpool gang that did that. But I mean, that wasn't really. You couldn't really call that factory farming. I remember that I got the film of that. It's really weird because we end up going to the BBC in Manchester with the film of it, and it was around the time of the Falklands War, which ended up being the problem. But we took the film that the activists had shot to the BBC, Oxford Road in Manchester, and they were looking at it and going, "Oh, it's well wobbly," because the BBC in those days, if they showed anything that wasn't by them, they used to have this big sign at the bottom saying amateur footage, right? But this amateur footage was so bad that what they did was they hired a courier on a motorbike to take the film from Manchester down to London and put it through a machine called a Quintel or Quantel or something, which stabilized it. It was, kind of like really advanced technology for the time. And then the motorcyclists drove back to Manchester. And because I remember it was really weird because it featured on the news, and we were there through the news bulletin in the studio, and during the rehearsal it was so weird because like newsreaders have got an earpiece, right? One of the stories in the news bulletin was this kid had fallen out of a 30-story block of flats and bounced and survived. And it was the second time he did it, right? And so this guy was kind of telling this straight-faced, and so remarkably, Michael bounced for the second time. And in his ear, which we could hear in the studio, the producer and all that, and going, that kid must be made out of fucking rubber, right? And we were like killing ourselves laughing, but the guy had a really kind of straight face. So that was a rehearsal. And I couldn't believe it, because when they went live on air, they were still cracking jokes about the kid and everything. And the guy just had to keep a straight face.
Yeah, they're obviously trained themselves to mentally be able to do that, to block it out, aren't they?
Yeah.
I suppose. But
and at the same time, listen as well to instructions and stuff.
That quail, didn't they use a caravan to transport the quail? Was that the raid where they were, after they took the crowd, they used a caravan like that was towed?
I can't remember that detail, Ronnie.
Yeah, and the caravan had been nicked from someone who was involved in some kind of oppression of other animals as well. So it was a sort of a bit of a double whammy.
We
That's
we
what I
did that
vaguely
once upon a time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say too many details, just in case it's still within the threshold. But once upon a time, we borrowed a horse box from the person that we liberated dogs from, and then took it back about 4 hours later once the dogs were a long way away.
We took
We
it
had no
back.
interest
What's the
in the
matter with
horse
you?
box; we just needed it.
Yeah, it's like the group of hunt. I knew a group of hunt sabs who they had an old Land Rover, and the tyres on the Land Rover were dodgy. So they went to the hunt kennels in the middle of the night and jacked up the Land Rover belonged to the hunt and nicked all the wheels off it and put them on their own Land Rover.
Left them on bricks.
Yeah, left it on bricks, took the wheels and put it on their own Land Rover. So they had 4 new tyres.
And 4 spares, I guess. Yeah.
Well, kind of. That 4 spare wheels they could put new tyres on if that ever happened, or perhaps they just went to another hunt kennels and nicked 4 more wheels.
Right, so what I've got left on my list, lads, is the problem of rescue, tension between the ALF and the now, press office removed from the VOAV and then set up in Hammersmith, Operation Valentine.
Okay,
And,
so the tension with Noel comes before Operation Valentine, doesn't it? Is there anything else to kind of cover before you mention that? And then I suppose because of the nature of that, we could potentially go into the rescue side afterwards.
Yeah. We did talk about some of the
Yeah, I mean, we did. That's what I mean. We may well have already covered it. We talked
it was
about
just
obviously you had a difference of opinion and there were frustrations that they'd go into places and kind of like do surveillance, that sort of stuff, but wouldn't do any damage.
And I kind of thought if all those people that went on a null raid, there'd be dozens of people going on a null raid. If all of them, instead of doing that, put their energy into kind of local type ALF actions, then the damage caused to the, mainly it was to do with vivisection, wasn't it? Animal experimentation. The damage done to that industry would be far greater. It would be much better use of those resources if they use their energies in that way rather than in these mass raids that really didn't really cause damage.
Yeah. And I suppose if that was happening, let's say just for argument's sake that the NAL set up like next month, obviously all these people could wear like GoPros and that sort of stuff. And so doing exactly the old things that they used to do would still have a huge benefit because they could record all of this stuff. But obviously back then, it would have been, you've got a very sort of slight opportunity or time frame that you can do this stuff. And obviously I can understand the frustration of not doing more once you've got that opportunity, because getting in half the time must have been quite difficult.
It was, well, they kind of did it. I mean, now tended to do it by force of numbers, that they just storm a place.
Yeah.
And so
I suppose in that case, does that mean it didn't necessarily always have to be empty?
No, I mean, I think
what would happen when they least expect. What they did with the ICI thing is that they had people ringing the police station from lots of different payphones to keep their phone lines clogged up, so right. the genuine call couldn't get through.
Makes sense. That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very different type of action. And what Operation Valentine was, it was a kind of, it was decided, a few of us got together and said, well, how about we try and do an ALF action in the daytime, similar to Null, but like where we'll actually cause damage and we'll take animals as well. And it was decided there was a laboratory in
Stock, it was called.
It was a laboratory at Stock in Essex. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. It Life Science Research or something?
Yeah, something like that. And
Life Science Research. Yeah. I was looking at the pictures earlier. Yeah, that's right.
They were They had beagles there and kind of smaller animals. And basically, what the idea was that there was going to be a legal, lawful demonstration outside. And I think there'd been demonstrations outside there before, where there were people with placards and banners and all that. And while those people were outside doing the lawful demo,
it was a decoy. I was part of that one.
Decoy, yeah. The ALF activists would turn up, and would just charge in there and do the raid. And it was felt that because it was kind of, the lab was used to having like a peaceful demo outside, that wasn't a threat to them, that they wouldn't bother to call the police or anything when they saw the ordinary protesters, and so it wouldn't kind of affect the people going in, and kind of that's what's happened. And the guy that kind of what we did was we sort of it was kind of suggested that there be a lawful protest outside, right? And the person who was encouraged to organise it was a guy called Steve Boulding, and he organised this like, sort of peaceful protest outside. And he was a bus driver, and he took a minibus of people to this protest. And a lot of them were elderly people in this minibus that kind of, with their placards and all that. And none of them knew. I think not even Steve knew that there was going to be a raid. And then what happened? All these activists turned up, they were sort of masked in one way or another because there were cameras on this place and all that. But a lot of the masks were just kind of people putting kind of handkerchiefs, like the kind of cowboy bandit type thing where they kind of got like a handkerchief over the bottom part there.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the kind of medical mask of the now.
No, it
wasn't the ALF either, was it? So.
No, and anyway, they all charged in, and of course the peaceful demonstrators, lawful demonstrators, had no idea this was going to happen, and basically
some of us did, Ronnie.
Well, I think there were some. You see, basically there was some that did, but the idea was really that that most of the people on those demos they didn't need to be told because we didn't.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the ones that were organised by the BWV and that included me. I think we were told to expect something, but without giving.
And then what happened? You see, I didn't take part in it because it was agreed that somebody needed to be able to speak to the media, in a position to speak to the media. So I was kind of in the press office waiting for calls to come in so I could talk to the media about that, and that was going to be my role in it.
Yeah, can you hear that, Andy? It's just like Churchill, isn't it? Oh, I didn't actually take part in the war. I just sat.
I just sat and smoked cigars. Yeah. Oh no, it was.
I just listened to the news come in. Yeah,
I listened to it was part of. It was kind of part of the plan.
I just ticked off the names of my friends as they got arrested.
Yeah, what happened is like a load of people charged in there. There was a lot of damage caused, a lot of stuff smashed up, and there were dogs rescued, and there were some of the smaller animals rescued as well. But then what happened was, and I think they were security guards, but they just locked themselves in. They had this like security post, a little building that they just locked themselves in. They just locked themselves in, because they didn't know what was going to happen. But obviously they called the police. The police turned up, and basically the activists that had got the beagle dogs, they just jumped in any vehicle, and what happened was this minibus that Steve had hired to, the guy that was organising the lawful demo, a load of the activists jumped in this minibus, and so there was like I think a mixture of activists in the minibus and some of the elderly lawful demo, and he drove off, and very accomplished driver. He was a bus driver. Pursued by the police, and there was this high-speed chase of the minibus pursued by the police, and in the end, there was a roadblock, and they stopped the minibus, and everyone on the minibus was arrested, including people that had no idea that this raid was going to take place. They had just gone to go on a peaceful, lawful demo, you see, and then various other activists were arrested. And what they did was they took them. They used a school hall or a school gymnasium to hold everyone because there wasn't room.
Yeah, that was my fate actually.
Yeah, and I think they actually sadly got all the dogs back. I think some of the smaller animals were
just quickly to clarify, the little clip from the Animals film, that's not Operation Valentine, is it? When they're all chanting like animal liberation, and they're kind of like, there's a big group of them walking through, which I'm assuming is some sort of laboratory facilities, but there's like pigs and stuff there.
No, I don't
No,
think
that could have been Babraham and the Now could have been.
It's literally, you know, the part of the animals film when Ronnie's in it, and they've kind of got like the split in between, and it goes to like there's some footage of a huge group of people, and some of them have got like camo on and that sort of stuff. That there's like I don't know if it's a laboratory.
Is that where you see people climbing up fences?
Yeah, there's like a guy going through the window.
I think that might
basically.
be I think that might be Porton Down actually. That one.
Oh, okay.
But what happened? I mean, some people got prison sentences as a result of Operation Valentine. They were mostly short sentences, like 3 months, that kind of sentence. But Steve Balding,
he got 16, didn't he? 16 months.
15 months, I think it was.
Yeah.
Because they pinned it on him that he was the organizer of the whole thing, whereas actually he wasn't. He was just the organizer of the lawful protest. But I think the weird
thing about that, Ronnie, right, is that his sentence of 16 months was after your 3 years, wasn't it? And so, but I remember it causing real shockwaves in the movement.
Well, because I think the 3 years that I got was for a massive amount of damage at the time, whereas there wasn't the same,
Well, the damage of this one was estimated at 100,000 quid.
I just checked it, Roger. It just says an agricultural research centre near Cambridge. It doesn't give any more details.
Well, I think that's Babraham.
That's Babraham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's where they famously shot the first pictures of those cannelers in the side of goats and cows.
And I think
that makes sense. Because in some of the clips, there's like pigs that have got like kind of insertions in their head and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird research there. They were trying to create square chickens with no legs and stuff like this.
That's awful. And cloning, they cloned Dolly the sheep, didn't they?
Is that where Dolly was doing?
Yeah, I think that was much later, though. Wasn't it?
Yes, well, I know where that is.
But the vicar, there was a church right near to the research facility, animal laboratory there. And the vicar of this church spoke out in favour of what they were doing, in favour of the experiments, see. So a load of us went along and went into one of his services.
I mean, just very quickly, do you not see like a huge irony in someone that believes that God created all animals and then, let's play God ourselves? Like without any kind of contradiction there.
Yeah, of course. But of course, in my view, like religionism is
I mean, from our point of view, that's nonsense, right? But if you live by the idea that God gave us these animals, well, you're basically turning around and saying, he didn't do a very good job, let's do better.
Well, yes, but of course they don't think at such depths as that, do they?
No.
And what happened was that we went in the church and we there was probably about 10 a dozen of us. We spaced ourselves out, amongst the congregation. And when the vicar got up to do his sermon, like one person got up and interrupted and started saying, you're a disgrace, supporting the torture of animals and all that. And there was these kind of church heavies. There was this, and they came and dragged that person out.
Church heavies?
Yeah, they seemed. I don't know whether they were just
like bouncers, you mean, or just biggest people that were in the church naturally.
Well, I don't think he didn't have an idea. He didn't know that this was going to happen. So there must have been just these big, big blokes that supported the vicar that were just there anyway.
I don't think in 37 years I've ever heard that terminology before.
Church heavy, yeah, and then
big blokes that support the vicar.
Kind of, yeah, and then he'd start speaking again, and someone else would get up and interrupt him. Then they'd be dragged out, and all the congregation would go, "Oh, disgusting! Get out of here!" And all that. And it went on for ages. This disruption of the service went on for absolutely ages because there was, so many of us in there spread out amongst the congregation.
So did you get thrown out, Ronnie?
Oh yes, I was carried out by church.
Carried out by the church heavies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you'd only need one of those, though, wouldn't you, for that?
Yeah, it was an elderly woman that carried me out.
You should have done your church work when the karate guys were about.
We should have had them in the church.
Yeah.
Give the vicar the chop.
The heavies versus the choppers.
Or I could have brought those skinheads, couldn't I?
Yeah, you could have brought the skinheads. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So I'm looking at a report about Operation Valentine. Some of the most iconic pictures come from.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but yeah, £100,000 worth of damage, and then some of this is from Against All Odds, which is a book which we know about. But the lead up to Operation Valentine, which was 1981. Oh, look, have we paused this? Have we stopped?
I think we might be, because I don't know what's happened to Andy. Perhaps he's having some technical problems.
All right, so are we still on the air? Can people hear us?
Post in the chat if you can still hear us.
Yeah, Jennifer, can you hear us? Oh, yeah, we got a yes, and yes.
I'm good. I think it must be just Andy that's disappeared, because he's not.
Okay. Well, I was just about to say that because Operation Valentine was on Valentine's Day in 1982, but in Against All Odds, they report that in 1981 there was a night of action, which included 40 different attacks on one night. And of course, that's the kind of weird thing that we'll probably never get back to, in the sense that there was something like six ALF actions per night at one point.
Oh, massive! Was this night of action? Was that one against the vivisectors? There was a night of action where a load of their kind of homes were attacked.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and it was mainly their cars or daubing on the, on the front of their houses and that kind of thing. But yeah, there was because I remember kind of spending hours and hours in phone boxes. I was one of the people that
was just your hobby, wasn't it, Ronnie?
I just was one of the people coordinating that, and we were kind of just giving information to people all over the country about where these characters lived. And
Andy said he's overheated. It must have been your story about the church heavies, Ronnie.
The church heavies, it was too exciting. Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
And that was like the kind of level of activism that there was at that time. That they were able to carry out 40 actions in different parts of the country. There were sufficient activists to do that. It's just like incredible.
Yeah, but I mean, the weird thing, right? Going back to your thing, which is vegan education everywhere and all the time, is we probably couldn't get 40 different lots of vegan outreach going on at the same time nowadays.
No, if you said, right, we're going to have a day of vegan outreach, and we're going to, everyone's going to do a stall in their town centre, like giving out leaflets and talking to people. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't be able to do. You wouldn't be able to go. I tell you, the one thing. The one thing that's kind of maybe gone now. Hopefully, the one thing that matches that in recent years was a couple of years ago. It was to do with Camp Vegan. It was to do with getting signatures for a petition they had, a parliamentary petition, and I think the woman that organised it, she managed to. I think there were more than 70 local stalls, promoting that petition, all on the same day. I think she got it may have been as many as 75, in different parts of the country. So,
welcome back, Andy.
It kind of can be done, but of course, because this was, to do with beagles, that I. It's kind of something.
Yeah, see what you're getting at there. Yeah.
Yeah, but she managed to get some, and I think that's probably the in terms of a coordinated action, that's probably the one that's had the most instances of stuff.
Jaden, I see your comment. We'll get back to you. We've done our hour really, but we'll get back to you about that. Are you there, Andy?
Yeah, I'm here. As long as you can hear me, okay.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Yeah,
now.
To be fair, I haven't really seen any actual questions so far for the most part. So
there's one by Jaden, which is quite interesting. But I mean, like, really, we want to get to the bottom of the ALF this week, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, Ronnie, maybe you can tie two stories together. That you were kicked out of the BYV and you're Hammersmith.
What happened was I kind of the BYV, British Union for the Abolition of Vivisection, now known as Cruelty Free International. They had at the time I kind of sort of became active. That they had an office in Charing Cross Road in Soho, and I used to, they became more radical. They, more radical progressive people. They kind of took them over, and I used to go in there quite frequently, and they allowed me to use a desk in their office for the ALF sort of press office work, where the media could phone me and all that kind of thing. And then they moved to, was it Islington? I think they moved to.
Yeah, Crane Grove, wasn't it? Crane Grove?
Was it Highbury Corner, somewhere like that?
Yeah. Crane Grove, wasn't it?
Crane Grove, yeah. And that was like it was like a first floor suite of offices, and it was much bigger. The premises were much bigger. And when you came up into the office, to the right there was a very large office space, and to the left there was a smaller one. And they allowed kind of various sort of animal rights groups to use the smaller part. And there was like in the smaller part there was like a bigger office, and at the back, through a door into a smaller one. And they allowed me to use that smaller office as the ALF press office.
They even gave you a phone. But even more impressive, Ronnie, that not only did they have you there, they had Gandhi there, didn't they?
Oh, they had, yeah. I mean, Gandhi, or Gandhi, as she called him, was a dog who was cared for, a rescue dog, cared for by Janet, who was the receptionist at the BYV. But they used to, these people, other people used to bring their dogs in there as well. It was like dog friendly place. And in the larger office, next to mine, they had a local Sea Shepherd group. They had a group called Artists for Animals, and there was another group called the Fur Action Group at the time, and they had desks in the kind of larger office which was next to mine. You see, and what happened was, I mean, the BYV was to a certain extent supportive of the ALF. The BYV supported they were very sympathetic to the animal rescue side of things, but when it came to the damage, damage to property, they weren't so supportive. And there was an election coming up for people to the BYV committee. And so we wanted to get people elected to the BYV committee that were even more sympathetic to the ALF than the ones that were on there, you see. So we had a meeting. We had a meeting in my little office about it. A few of us together saying, hatching a plan. How can we get...
You had a meeting in part of the BYV to overtake the BYV. Great.
Well, not to overtake the BYV, just to get people elected to their committee that were more sympathetic to the ALF. But Kim Stallward, who was the second in command at the BYV at the time, was in their committee room, which was the other side of the wall to our office, and he listened through the wall.
Yeah, come on, Ronnie, how naive could you be, man?
He listened through. Well, we didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, you had a pop at the Sheffield lot for pissing on their own doorstep. That's even worse.
Well, yeah, I think we just didn't realise that he was there, listening, sneakily. He snuck into his own office sneakily.
Yeah, he had a listening device called his ears.
So basically, of course,
maybe he had that spider.
He might have done. Yeah, I think he probably just had a.
He had a fly
and a tumbler with his ear to it, But anyway, what they did was that they had this special committee meeting all about it, but kind of really what he was putting forward at the committee meeting that was that we wanted people elected to the B-Wave committee that supported violence. You see. But because it wasn't violence, we didn't consider ALF actions to be violent. We considered them to be.
Well, to be fair though, Ronnie, I mean, this was a time when the armed animal rights militia was kind of kicking off. So maybe it was a little bit more ambiguous about that because you decided to kind of talk about the animal rights militia rather than saying, oh, that's just a different group, right? So maybe there was, maybe he was just a bit worried.
Well, I mean, whatever that was, they had a meeting and they said, right, to throw us out. You see, so we were thrown out of the BOV.
Evicted.
The ALF process was evicted. And so we had to find new premises, and there was this guy that was kind of involved in the supporters group at the time, and he'd been a tax inspector. He knew a lot about income tax, and so he kind of helped us find an office. We found an office in Putney, in southwest London, and he went in there and set it all up, and he said that it was going to be for a tax advisory service. It was called the Independent Tax Advisory Service, you see. So under that pretext, we got this office in Putney, you see.
It was a tax advisory service.
A tax advisory service, yeah, of course, yeah. And anyway, and they were sort of three of us in there. There's myself, and there was Vivian Smith, who was involved in the I was the press officer. Viv was the editor of the ALF Supporters Group newsletter, and there was another woman in there who she basically was a really, really good typist, and she volunteered to do like a lot of typing that we needed. You see, so there's the three of us in there really, and kind of, but what would happen? There was like there was another office sort of next to ours with these guys. I don't know what their work was, but they used to come in and say, oh, I've got a problem with my tax, can you help me? You see, so we didn't know bugger all of it. So what we used to say, well, look, we're just the office staff, we just do the clerical work, but when our boss comes in, we'll get him to talk to you. So what happened when this guy used to come and see us, the guy that had been the income tax inspector, we used to get him to go and talk to them about their tax problems. You see, that's how we did it. You see. And then eventually, for some reason, we left there. I don't know whether it was too expensive or whether
Sound like too many difficult questions.
Yeah, well, I think it might have been because whoever owned the place wanted to sell it or something. But so we need to get another office. So basically, we found an office in Hammersmith on the big. It was kind of opposite the underground station at Hammersmith. On about the fourth floor of this kind of tall office. It was quite a kind of.
It was like a flyover there, wasn't there, Ronnie?
Yeah, it's right near the flyover where I think it's the
and a really massive Jewish cemetery.
M4, yeah. There's and it's not far from the Odeon. Hammersmith Odeon was very near there as well. And so we had this little office on the top floor. And once again, we got that under the pretext of being like a tax advisory service. You see, that's how we got. I think we forged letters and everything, because you could do it. You had to use Letraset then. It wasn't like you could do it on the computer.
You just made life difficult for yourself, essentially.
Yeah, we had to forge. Well, because we'd never got an office. We couldn't say we were ALF press office.
No, but you could come up with loads of things, couldn't you? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think it was just that. I think it was just this. The guy just suggested, well, what we're going to pretend to be, and he said, well, pretend to be that, because at least if anyone asked us, he knew about it, so we could just say, well, we'll get him to get in touch with you or something. That's what.
Yeah, let's pretend to be something we don't know anything about.
We didn't know anything about it, but this other guy did, so we could kind of put him onto the. That's what we used to do. So that's where that was, and it was that office that got raided when. The people got arrested for the in Sheffield for the incendiary after they'd listened through the ceiling to their conversations, because they were all there like talking about assembling, because there was one guy whose job was to get the watches, and there was another guy that made the incendiary devices, and there was other people that planted them, and it was all and they got all this was all recorded, and then they got arrested, you see. And basically, in one of their conversations, they mentioned me in a kind of joking way, you see. And so the police kind of came down to London. They'd been arrested in February and charged, and they were
an expensive joke, that, Ronnie.
Well, it kind of was for me, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then they came down to London, arrested me, and they arrested Viv Smith, who was shared the office with me, and she was the editor of the ALF Supporters Group newsletter, and we ended up all being charged with conspiracy, because what they did was they took a load of documents from the office, and it was on the basis of some of those documents that they got kind
Yeah,
of.
but it's interesting how they made sense of it, though, isn't it, Ronnie? Which is why you ended up being called the general, and I was a lieutenant or lieutenant or whatever, and so was Brendan, and so was Viv, and everything. Because whatever they got from the office or wherever else, they could only interpret it in a kind of hierarchical.
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah, because they didn't appreciate the decentralised nature of the ALF at all. And so it had to be the only way that they could they had to give ranks to various people, and the people in Sheffield that were involved in sort of that made and planted the incendiary devices, they were called foot soldiers. They were just the foot soldiers.
Essentially, would you agree, Ronnie, that what the state really wanted to do is not shut the organisation down, because they couldn't do that, although they would like to have, but they wanted to shut it up. In other words, silencers. So this is why the press office was targeted, right? So you weren't an activist at the time, and yet you got the big sentence.
Well, I kind of was as well.
Yeah, no, but officially, yeah.
No, they didn't. No, there was no evidence.
No, that's what I mean. So they effectively
no evidence of that.
They wanted to shut us up.
Yeah, there was no evidence of there was no evidence of me being involved in any actions. It was
that's what I mean. So they couldn't have been going, well, he's at it anyway. It was the fact that they just wanted the organisation to be silent.
Yes, I think that's true. And in fact, the next press officer was a guy called Robin Lane. He took over from me as press officer. He ended up getting sent to prison. I think he got 9 months in prison for his press office work as well. And then nobody wanted to be the press officer after that, because it was a long line. Robin Webb was the next press officer.
I wonder why. So what did Robin get charged with then? Robin Lane.
I think the same as I've been charged with conspiracy and incitement to cause criminal damage. I think the same thing, and that was on the basis of him being the press officer, and and obviously.
Surely, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but surely the press officer's job is to report on events after they've happened. How did they make that connection?
I mean, basically, with me, I don't know really the details of Robin's case, because that all happened to him while I was in prison. I was still in prison when that happened. But what they did was that they charged Robin, and they also charged the guy that printed the ALF supporters. There was a guy that had his own printing business who he lived in the West Midlands. And he was the printer. He printed the ALF Supporters Group newsletter, you see. And the ALF Supporters Group newsletter was really quite closely connected with the press office. And he was charged as well. He went on trial with Robin, but he was acquitted because he said, well, I didn't know what was printed. I was just paid to print this, and I printed it. I didn't read it. Do you know what I mean? I didn't read through it. I can't, I don't read through everything I print.
Would Robin not have said the same thing? I didn't read it. I just typed it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just
but he said it as well. I think one of the things that went against us was the fact that we were pretty naive, and we would use we language instead of they language.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of the problem was we got away with it for so long. I mean, like if you look at the ALF supporters group, and a lot of the reason that I ended up being convicted was because I was kind of associated with this ALF supporters group as well. I wrote a lot of stuff for their newsletter, and they proved that a lot of the news, although I wrote under a pseudonym, I used to write under the pseudonym of Captain Kirk, because
I'm surprised you actually admit that in the 21st century, right?
I was a big Star Trek fan, and what they did was that there was an article by Captain Kirk written in my handwriting that was in the office, and they found that and they said, "Aha, we've proved that Lee is Captain Kirk," and so therefore all the articles that were signed were.
But it also is a sign of the times, because something as flimsy as that now, a solicitor would probably be like, well, that's inadmissible, really. That could be anything.
Well, you see, the trouble is with the conspiracy trial, they can just throw loads of stuff in, and that's what they did. And so I was all these.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that, because there's that forum on Facebook that keep calling me the T word and everything. They've absolutely got no idea of what a conspiracy trial involves.
No.
They've got no idea how peripheral people could be.
No, absolutely. And this is what happened. They throw all this stuff in, all these different bits and pieces, and kind of hoping that like some of it will stick, or it will kind of, whereas a lot of it's not really relevant. But anyway, that's how I got.
But it's a little bit like, I mean, for people who don't understand conspiracy trials, it's a little bit like thinking about a bicycle wheel with the spokes. And so it only means that the person in the middle, if they know people on all the different spokes going out, then it means that all the people who are at the other end of the spoke are part of the conspiracy, even though they don't know each other.
Yeah, you can be charged with conspiring with people that you just don't know anything about, you never met, you never spoken to, you've never had anything.
Yeah, I mean, most of the Sheffield defendants, well, a good number, say half of the Sheffield defendants I'd never seen before.
No. I think that's the difficulty, and so it's kind of easier. It's easier to prove than if you're just charged with actually doing the thing, because conspiracy is planning. Is that you planned with other people to do something. It doesn't mean that you even did anything. It's just
no, but you don't have to do that. You just have to plan to do something with the person in the middle of the.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they kind of, possibly had me as the person in the middle. I kind of don't know really.
So lads, have we finished with the ALF now, or is there anything else to say? Because we could finish with Jaden's question if you wanted to.
Yeah, there was just a thing about homes. The fact that
Rescued Animal Sanctuary Fund.
Yeah, because obviously you can't just keep rescuing animals and taking them to sanctuaries and that, because sanctuaries have got really limited space. And very quickly would be.
It's really frustrating when you think about it, because the thing that is very popular with everybody, I mean, the people in the movement love it, but also the media love it. It's the most difficult thing to do. The thing that's most easy to do, the media don't like it.
Oh, absolutely. But you see, we didn't care about that, because we just wanted to call, this idea of economic sabotage, and not everyone in the ALF was as much into it as maybe I was, and a few other people I knew were into it. There was a lot that really just wanted to rescue animals, and that was it. But my idea was to cause maximum damage to these places and put them out of business.
Here's a question for you, Ronnie. When you were in that mindset, did you never have any conversation with anybody that said, well, "Hang on a minute, Ronnie, instead of attacking the supply side, we need to concentrate on the demand side"?
Oh no, there was never, because the movement wasn't that way. That wasn't historically how, how the movement worked. All these things were like a kind of attack on supply, and so we just carried on thinking in the same way. And I think what happened is, because we kind of got away with it for really quite a long time. I mean, like the sort of early issues of this supporters group newsletter, there'd be stuff in there like, like encouraging people to like sponsor a crowbar, sponsor a pair of bolt cutters. If you sponsor, these things, then you'll receive like a photograph of the raid on which they were used, you see. And so, like stage photo would be taken afterwards or something, and that person would be sent it so they could frame it and put it on their wall. that my crowbar that I sponsored was used on this particular raid. It was as bad, it was as blatant as that. I mean, that's obviously
And I mean, what year
against the
were
law.
you talking about? Because I've got a folder full on a hard drive full of those exact same photos from people that did exactly the same thing for my group. So they would buy something off the Amazon wish list and they'd get like a photograph that nobody else would see. Yeah, and I've still got a hard drive full of them.
Oh, great! So you two invented branding in the movement, then, did you?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and
Actually, on that note, all the photographs did used to say like they had this watermark across them that said "rescued by raid." So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and that's why it was as blatant as that. And I mean, like the ALF Sports Group newsletter, there was even like a kind of a story strip, picture strip of like how to break into a place, different ways of breaking in. If there's an alarm, how you can get through the roof and bypass the alarm, and how to kind of, how to sort of like cut round a lock and get in. And it was all like, it was like this picture story of how to do it and all that, and we just got away with it because there'd been no interest.
You'd never get away with that with surveillance now.
Absolutely not.
No, I mean loads of it you wouldn't get. In loads of it you
no. I mean like in this day and age, right? Somebody couldn't get onto a roof with a rifle, for example, and take a shot at a president, could they?
No, not at all. Couldn't. Not a very good shot, unfortunately. But there we are. And then the load of I noticed. There was this, must have been a pandemic of really bad shots in the USA. Because did you see all those people that had the same bandage on their ear that Donald Trump had? So there must have been like loads of this going on, mustn't there?
Yeah, and these are the people who refused to wear masks because they didn't want to be, followers of a kind of fad.
I know. It's just crazy. But yeah, but that was a kind of problem with, and also the costs to the sanctuaries, because it's like one thing you just go to a place, take animals out, give them to a sanctuary, right? That's the end of your.
That's what I was getting at when it came to homes for 30, who all ended up being pregnant.
Yeah.
So it's 60 plus.
And so the Rescued Animal Sanctuary Fund, that was a way of raising funds that could be then given to sanctuaries to care for.
Yeah, well, the idea was that we would go around and kind of tell them what it really was, but on the QT kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it never really worked because you'd have to have a couple of people working full time at it, really.
Yeah.
And so, then you'd have the problem of coordination of somebody's got a home, and then there's a group that wants to do a raid. And then obviously, the home could change, the group could change, so it was a bit of a nightmare. It's just that it was seen as kind of, it was one of the things that we used the false names for, because my partner at the time wanted to come up with the name Sarah Bean. And I said, you can't do that. You can't say Sarah Bean. So we changed it to Sarah Dean, because I said Sarah Bean is too much like soya bean, isn't it?
It kind of is, yeah. Yeah, it's quite like soya.
So there's loads and loads of pseudonyms going around then. One of the ones I used more than anything else was called Jill Lockwood. So there's quite a lot of articles around by Jill.
Yeah.
Lockwood.
I mean, we had one that was a guy called Peter Conrad, and basically he used to be the guy that kind of his name was on all the cars, because what I'd do is I'd get cars for some of the ALF groups, and I knew someone where I could get them cheaply, you see, and so that's what I do. But all of them were taxed and insured under the name of this fictitious Peter Conrad guy. Now you'd never be able to do that now.
Yeah,
everything's much tighter. But they were known as the Conrad cars, and all these people had what was called a Conrad car, you see. And then what they do if they were stopped, and they'd have their own insurance, but they'd have one of these insurance that insures you to drive any other vehicle, you see.
It's terrible the way the police have clamped down on criminality now.
They cramped down on that, and someone, he had to have an address, this Peter Conrad, and he had the address of a sympathiser that I knew in North London. It was this Peter Conrad's address, and the police went round there one night looking for him. Knocked on the door and said, and she said, "Oh, he's moved out. He moved out some while ago. Don't live here anymore." And they didn't really press it because she was an older person.
Is Peter in? I remember. The time when I was on the run, the police arrived where I was staying, and I just heard the cop saying to the person who answered the door, "Is ALF in?"
Oh, yeah. I know. It's just great. But look, we'll answer this question because I'm going to have to really go very soon. So
yeah, okay. The question is, what do you think of carnivorous fellow animals?
Well, you see, the thing is they don't have a choice of what to eat. That's the way they've evolved. They've evolved as carnivores, and so they have to consume meat, and that's what I suppose their instincts.
What's the distinction between carnivores and obligate carnivores? Does anybody know?
Well, no, I think an obligate carnivore is an animal that kind of has to eat meat.
They have to, but is that the same as being a carnivore?
I think it is. I don't really see what the distinction is.
I think it might be.
And it means they kind of have to now. Now, it's possible to synthesize food for them, like
lab meat, for example.
Yeah, the problem with free living carnivores is if you could kind of somehow give them the understanding that this was wrong and there's a different choice, you also have to then provide that choice.
Yeah,
so
because
in the case of like domestic cats, this is something that we actually can do to some degree. We can change their diet. We can't make them understand morality, but we can change their diet.
No,
so the problem that we'd have is even if lions did all of a sudden think, hang on a minute, that's not very nice for the gazelle, unless someone's going to kind of like helicopter drop lab-grown meat into the jungle or into the Serengeti.
For lions, though, Andy, they might like that because, for example, they're not going to have to do anything to get it. So, it would actually suit them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've made this point before that, like, I'm sure if you could make any kind of obligate carnivore understand that, look, at 3 p.m. every single day in this particular place, we're going to drop like a care package. You'll never have to hunt again. I can't imagine you get too many lions going, but that's going to reduce the chances of me being gored by a tusk.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are kind of scavenging is also a big part of their, a big part of their diet. In other words, if they come across like the carcass of an animal that's been killed by another carnivore, they'll chase that carnivore off and they'll consume.
The philosophical answer to it is the distinction within Reagan between moral agents and moral patients. Mm-hmm. So if you're a moral agent, you can think morally. If you're a moral patient, you can't. And so that means that moral patients don't do anything wrong morally because they don't understand morality.
Yeah. And I often think, the thing is that there's various people have various ideas of kind of what dietary position humans fit into. There are some that say humans are omnivores. In other words, we can eat a wide range of different food. There's others that say that we're herbivores, and others that say that they're actually really are fruitarians.
Yeah, frugivores.
Frugivores. Yeah, because if you go back, like far enough in time, probably the first humans kind of were frugivores because we're primates, aren't we? And originally probably kind of lived in trees or lived in that kind of environment. You see, so that was, and it was only when.
Yeah, it'd certainly be a fruit heavy diet, wouldn't it?
Heavy diet, you see. So that's why.
So plants and plates is asking, what if we could modify them? This is the carnivores, not to require flesh. So this is the kind of negative utilitarian position.
I think the going back to just before talk about that. The one about the thing is that, say, but fundamentally, the thing about humans is we can live perfectly well, whatever the diet is that.
Well, there wouldn't even be a vegan movement if we were obligated for carnivores, would there?
No. Well, there kind of wouldn't be, but because we don't need to consume animal products in order to live healthily.
Yeah, but that's a prerequisite of our position, isn't it?
Yeah. Therefore, it's wrong. Therefore, it's wrong to do so because
Yeah.
how could it be
Otherwise,
right?
it wouldn't be wrong to do it.
Well, it wouldn't be wrong to do it, but
We might try and figure it out.
I think, obviously, if we were obligate carnivores and we had to consume meat, we had to consume animal products in order to live. That's how we, say we were like a lion or a cat, or an animal like that, or I think ferrets and animals like that. But I think we would be under an obligation to use our technology to develop alternatives.
Well, it's ironic, isn't it? Because in that society, if you had that moral impulse, then think that lab meat would have developed a lot quicker than it has done.
Oh yes, would, yeah, and not necessarily even lab meat that comes from the cells of meat, but kind of alternatives to that, like the idea of bacterial fermentation to produce proteins and that kind of thing. I mean, food is perfectly nutritious food has been developed for cats that doesn't contain animal products.
Yeah, I mean, what you'd have is you'd have a society of human obligate carnivores with a moral argument within it that we should try and do this in another way, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's and we'd be obliged to do that. We're obliged to do that as beings that had the ability to choose, what we do.
But that's not true, is it? I mean, we've got a society that thinks themselves as omnivores, which means that they don't need flesh-derived products, but they will still insist on
that. Yeah, absolutely. And this is the problem. This is what kind of, we're all about, isn't it? Educating people that, why they shouldn't do that. But what was the other what was the other question before I went back to that about the
what we could modify carnivores?
I think it's kind of.
So I mean, I guess it would be like turning them into omnivores. I suppose would be or herbivores somehow.
I think there'd be immense difficulties in.
But you've also got the ecological problem, then, haven't you? About what?
Well, that's the issue of it, because obviously it's not just about the lions eating the gazelle for food, is it? It's also part of the system, the biological ecosystem of that particular
It means, I mean,
environment.
going back to someone like Milton Mills, I mean, he talks about the difference in hunting practices of real carnivores and humans. We go for the good specimens.
Yeah, absolutely. They cull the weak, right? Which is what.
Yeah, and so if that culling wasn't done, then that means that the prey species would deteriorate.
Absolutely, you're correct. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's a really key point. Like, nobody trophy hunts the weakest and oldest deer, do they? They want the biggest, the strongest, the youngest, the fittest, right? That's the trophy.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
we're taking the best of the best, whereas the
creatures
are often taking the weak.
The ones that take pictures with the giraffe that they've killed. I mean, you can't imagine them kind of taking a picture of a giraffe with cancer, could you?
No, it would defy the point of the trophy, right? That's what they kind of like. So, yeah, and whereas, for example, the giraffe that is taken down by the pack of hyena, for example, will be the slowest, the oldest, the lamest, the weakest. So there's a big significant. That's the other kind of factor. Even if we had like some sort of magic wands and we could turn lions into herbivores, say, and they could get everything they need from eating plants, it would have a massive adverse effect on the rest of the environment around them.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's a tragedy, really. The fact is, if you could change the carnivores, it wouldn't really help the prey species that much.
No.
And it's just a practicality of doing. And anyway, I think it's a question, that we're nowhere near being in a position to
Well, also it brings
decided
into. I
on.
mean, obviously it's kind of a weird hypothetical, but I mean, I suppose hypothetically, if that was the case, if you turned like the lions into grazing animals, for example, and the natural kind of what would be considered usual prey animals, the deer, the antelope, etc., they were in huge population. Well, naturally, more things like diseases would be in more frequency. And if the lions were now kind of eating the
Yeah,
same
it'd all be
food as the deer,
competing for the same food.
yeah, they'd be getting the same diseases, right? But they wouldn't have the same immune system designed to cope with those diseases because we genetically modified them to digest a diet that they weren't naturally supposed to eat. So they'd die anyway.
I think the other thing that kind of just touched on was that, if this were to happen, if that were to happen, it would only happen in a world that was that was certainly operated according to vegan principles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It would be
And
like once
so-
we've already
and-
abolished all other forms of animal use, and we're
Yeah,
now
and
looking at the
so-
growth of each. Yeah.
I think we're leading up to, and so we need vegan education more.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. To be even in a position to properly discuss this with, any kind of
Yeah, go for it, Ronnie.
practical
Tell us your
decision being
catchphrase.
made.
Go on, tell us your catchphrase.
Perfect way to end the show.
Yeah, we'd have to kind of have a sort of vegan-run society where vegans predominated, and the only way that we're going to get that is through creating more vegans, and the only way that's going to happen is through lots more vegan education, and the only people that can do the vegan education are vegans, and so what we need is a lot more vegans
Wow.
to become involved in it.
I'd never thought of that before, Ronnie. That's great.
You see, so that's why I can't end a show without saying that.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, what's also really important as well is just on top of having more vegans, we need vegans that are willing to encourage more vegans too. Not just more vegans that subscribe to one vegan's YouTube channel. More vegans that are doing their own thing, speaking about their own things, even if that's just sharing posts on social media. You are your own individual, and your voice and your everything counts just as much as anyone that's more famous than you. Don't forget that.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone. It's a bit like, say, Paul Watson. Captain Paul Watson is currently in custody in Greenland. I think he's still in custody, and there's a big campaign to free him, which is great. He should be freed, and he's regarded as a hero because he goes out and tries to stop the whales being killed. He's regarded as a hero, and people look up to him and almost worship him, really. But like everyone can be a Paul Watson, because if you educate one person to become vegan, certainly in here in the UK, that amounts to ending the demand for almost 100 animals to be killed every year.
Yeah.
But you can do just as much good as Paul Watson, perhaps even more good than Paul Watson does through vegan education. So and everyone can be involved in sparing other animals from slaughter, can't they?
Absolutely.
Whereas people kind of just worship these particular people. And they do great work. But everyone, we can all do great work. We can all be involved in this.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I've got to go.
No, on that note, I think that's a good note to end this on. So next week, I'm assuming we're back to the Vegan Society.
Yeah, well, we can have a little chat about that.
Okay. Well, just very quickly before we do end, because I'll get in trouble if I forget, as always.
Yeah, you better
this
not. You
this
better not
weekend
forget
it
this.
is the National Animal Rights March in London. If you are able to go, that would be brilliant. We start from midday at Marble Arch, and if you can't make it for the march but just want to be there for the speakers, we'll probably be there about 2 p.m. in Parliament Square. So it'd be great for as many of you as able to make it. I don't know, because I did it last year with Roger, and obviously we're both going to be there. So I hope there's going to be people that do live streams on here and stuff, so some of the people that aren't in the UK can still watch. But I know that I won't be doing a huge amount of that this year.
I'll
'Cause
live
obviously,
stream
yeah,
my
we
own
did
talk,
that last
so-
year, didn't we, Roger? We covered it all, and obviously, I don't think anyone's doing that job as far as I'm aware, and unless anyone wants to.
Well, hopefully, hopefully there'll be people there do, live streaming all over the place,
Hopefully.
from the march.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. But I shall see. I see the two of you there, and hopefully.
Yes, it'll be
a lot of our
excellent to see the
listeners as
pair of you
well.
in the same place at the same time.
Yes.
So,
Oh, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone
No.
could cope with that.
Too
it'll
much,
be
wouldn't it?
excellent. But no, on that note, thanks so much, and thank you all the chat. Take care, and see you soon.
Take care, everyone. Cheers then. Bye bye then. Bye.